Hello, everybody. Welcome into Talking Fitchburg on this Thursday, March 24th, 2022. I'm Jeremy Crosby, the guy with the frog in the throat, but I can do some really sweet voiceover work. Join us tonight for Talking Fitchburg, late night. Okay, maybe that wasn't really good, but you get the point. It's just this cold. This is lasting forever. Andrew, he's got a good voice, so why isn't he in here? I don't know. Doesn't matter. We're ready to rock and roll. He's running the behind the scenes part, and we do have a lot to get to. We'll get your headlines in just a minute, and then we're going to check in with the Fitchburg Historical Society. Catherine Schneider is back with her COVID-19 look back. She is talking to area businesses, folks. Everybody was affected by COVID-19, and she's trying to share some of those stories, gather the stories, share them, to put them in the archive for, well, future history as we're telling the story to generations to come. She'll be talking with Circo, a business here in Fitchburg that serves many different grocery stores and beyond. I'm very excited to hear this one, as definitely they played a big role here in helping out during the pandemic. So we'll talk about, she'll have that for you coming up on a two-parter today. Let's get to our headlines. So as we start this day, and we'll start with how to return your absentee ballot. If you are voting in the spring election by absentee ballot, please be reminded that you may only return your ballot via mail, in person to the clerk's staff at City Hall, or on election day at your polling location. You may only return your ballot. By the way, you cannot bring your spouse's ballot or anybody else's ballot. You can only hand over your ballot. So keep that in mind. And remember that the drop box is no longer available here because it has to be in sight of the clerks, and we don't have that option. So dropping off those ballots will be in person at your election on election day, or send it in via mail. All right, turning our attention to an arrest of an armed robbery suspect. A 19-year-old from the town of Madison was arrested on numerous charges stemming from armed robbery in Fitchburg last week. On Friday, March 18th, Fitchburg officers responded to the 2800 block of Oregon Road for reported robbery. The victim told officers he was robbed of a gun and money during a range meeting with the known individual. Cotine Richardson had developed probable cause for his arrest and was arrested yesterday. Fitchburg police personnel were assisted by Madison Police Department, Dane County Sheriff's Office, and the Wisconsin Department of Justice Criminal Investigation. And Richardson was booked into the Dane County Jail on numerous charges. Anyone with information regarding this armed robbery is asked to contact the Fitchburg Police Department, Madison Area Crime Stoppers, or you can go to p3tips.com to share your information. Spring 2022 Recycling Day event is coming up quick. Want to get this on the calendar for you if you don't already. It is scheduled for Saturday, April 9th from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here at the City Hall campus, 20 Lacey Road. You can check out our brochure online with all of details about the stuff that you can recycle that day. The good news is it's like it's been. We got the Shred Day going on, the electronic recycling, and the Med Drop for you. Andrew's got the map up there of where those locations of each of the stations will be, and we hope you'll join us for that. And again, there is some extra cost once it comes to your electronics, so please keep that in mind. Check our website for more information on that. All right, that does it for our headlines. Coming up next, we are opening up our two-part series here with the Fitchburg Historical Society, talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're going to be talking with Circo. That's coming up next right here on Talking Fitchburg.
It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so follow guidance from authorities where you live and stay home unless absolutely necessary. Use a delivery service for essential items like food and medicine. If you must make essential trips, stay 6 feet apart from other people. Wear a cloth face covering and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us.
Ready!
That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu. And especially this year, no one has time to get sick. Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
This is Catherine Schneider from the Fitchburg Historical Society. We are continuing with our series of interviews that we've been doing during COVID with people who are prominent in the Fitchburg community from business and education, government. Today, we have the pleasure of having Amy Niemczek with us from CERTCO. She is the CEO and president there, and she's been very kind to give us some of her time today to talk about CERTCO and their journey through COVID over these last 2 years. So Amy, thank you for being with us. We so appreciate it. So we know CERTCO, of course, is located very prominently along Highway 18 151 and then intersecting with McKee Road. So I remember seeing that so many times as I've passed by on the road, and I've always wondered, oh, wonder what goes on in there in those buildings. So maybe if you could just start us off with a brief history of CERTCO and then how you serve the retail grocers, maybe a little bit about size of your business, physical space there, number of employees, anything you'd like to share with us.
Sure. So thanks again for the opportunity. We, as you said, we've been located here at this location since about the mid 1960s, but CERTCO was formed back in 1930. It was based on the idea of pooling retailers together to buy together to get obviously the best cost for them, as well as more likely to receive product as they ordered it. So we've been around just over 90 years in business. So we are lucky to be organized as a cooperative still, even though we are a C Corp. So we are owned by the customers that we service. So it creates a really powerful customer service statement when anytime I have a new employee start, that in essence we're servicing the stockholder, not just a customer sale for us. So we exist because they exist, and we are supplying independent grocers. So we service about 250 miles around the Madison area. So we get up into northern Wisconsin, out into Iowa, and then into northern Illinois as well. We have 3 actual total distribution centers in Dane County. We have our distribution center here at Verona Road. We have just over 300 employees who either are working at different shifts here, are in our back office area. We also include in that 300 count some of our sales staff that aren't necessarily here, but the headquarters are here. And then we have 2 facilities that are near the East Side campus, we call it, off of Stoughton Road. And those buildings are our perishable building, and also our kind of where we have our non-food is what we call it. So health and beauty aids, general merchandise, candy is kept over there. So different segregation as we've grown. So overall 3 facilities, we have 1 million square feet. This facility here is about 450,000. And then also in the city of Fitchburg, we have our fleet maintenance facility, which is not necessarily right at the corner of PD and Verona Road. That's back on Spoke Drive, which was added as part of the DOT project when 18151 was revamped over the last 10 years. So that's where we're servicing all of our trucks and trailers. We do own our own fleet here as well. So we have about 50 drivers that handle all the delivery of product across the different states. So
it's a big operation in your chain. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to get into the pandemic, so it's been almost 2 years. This is March of 2022. Mm-hmm. And could you speak maybe to the specifics from the grocery business, the different stages maybe that you've gone through this pandemic, this 2 years of pandemic?
Yeah. So I always will remember, I know the exact day. It's March 13th of 2020. It was a Friday. For many of our stores, they felt the real impact in our area March 12th. That was really when, schools were deciding to close. Things were kind of being put on halt, but that was the day that kind of goes down and is my most memorable as far as product panic buying, right? Consumers were out from everything, as we all know, toilet paper, sanitizers, any of those Clorox wipes that you couldn't find for months. So we, in essence, we've always been a 24/7 operation, because that's what our stores are, right? Our independent grocers are always open. And it was just to that crazy degree. So we were shipping out product in, a 2 days time period is what we would ship out in an entire week, over that early part of March. So, so you went through that, and then you also had that panic of your employees, right? How am I going to keep my employees protected? You can't necessarily have your warehousemen and your drivers given an opportunity to work remote, but we in essence had to look at our back office jobs and take positions that were really never allowed to be remote and consider making them remote, because supply chain, as we all have felt, can get disrupted in a hurry. If I had buyers, for example, all become ill, right? So we, in essence, took any job that could physically be done, because the majority of it is at a desk, working on a computer and different programs we have, and put them remote. So, our business went through that, which we were not really grounded for. So, we had people walking out with printers and monitors and writing stuff down kind of on the fly, right? And then it was just getting that supply chain is back to normal as we could, right? So we were purchasing product the same way we sold it. Like, as I said, where 2 days was a week's worth of supply, it took a full week for that product to come back in. So, I remember that day as well. It was the following Friday where I pulled into the parking lot and there was probably 60 trucks. So we typically receive during third shift. And that was so heartwarming to me, because product showed back up, right? And we were going to have product to sell again. But you wait on many things, just like you have heard throughout the last 2 years. The manufacturers weren't able to obviously keep up with the increased demand. So we were making decisions about, how do you treat all of our owners equally, right? So how do you determine the best way to make sure everybody felt they were getting their fair share of our customers? So, you work through your technology, you work through, many discussions with my board. 7 of our current members are my board of directors. So I went from having a monthly meeting to daily emails, sometimes at least twice a week phone calls, just trying to come up with the best plan, because this was something we had never really gone through before. I reached out a lot I have a peer group that I'm part of other wholesalers around the country that are organized like us. So I use them a lot. One of them actually was in the South, and he had a really good example. He said COVID to the grocery world is like shopping before a hurricane. They in essence stock up. There's certain key items that you have to make sure you have. So that was actually really useful to try to come up with some good plans of getting through things. So, but then, just, putting measures in place for our people that are, in-house, the ones we couldn't put remote, and COVID policies, and the human resource part that became a never ending, what else can we try to do? So from thermal imaging, cameras that people had to walk into before you enter the building to take your temperature, things that we never dreamed of really having before. Obviously the masks that everybody had to wear for so many years, and making sure that was always up to what the most recent guidance was telling you the mask definition was. So it's been quite a roller coaster, and challenges that when I took over this role, I really didn't expect. So it's been very challenging, but also very rewarding to get to where we have been. So.
All right, we're going to take a short break. Catherine will have more on the other side of this break. You are watching Talking Fitchburg.
After you joined our family, it was like, I really do feel complete now.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it. So follow guidance from authorities where you live and do your part. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household. but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit any social gathering. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Brandon met a girl on a dating app. He finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving.
She must be a keeper.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. We're continuing our interview with the Fitchburg Historical Society. Catherine Schneider is talking with CEO Amy from CERTCO. We have part 2 for you right now.
You touched upon maybe how you responded to the COVID and where you went for getting guidance. Would you like to speak to that anymore? Because it was a brand new experience.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, the peer group that I'm involved with was extremely helpful. That way of really leaning on someone who equated COVID to a hurricane. I mean, that was really great information to utilize. But, for us, it was, our own internal resources, whether it was our insurance company, everywhere from the attorneys, right? You were writing policies that didn't exist. And, they were all extremely helpful. And we utilized actually a ton of our employees. You in essence put out your initial COVID protocol, and then you have somebody raise their hand and go, well, what if we do this? Great idea. So I think that just kind of speaks volumes of who we are and our culture we have here, that we listen to employees, we listen to their input, because they're the ones day in and day out that are seeing things and seeing potential risks that we should be thinking about alternatives. I think the one thing that came up was just a simple time clock, right? I mean, they don't use cards, but they were using their hand, right? Their hand gets programmed in, and they're like, well, that seems a little unsanitary, right? Early on, we didn't know how this virus was spreading. So, you reach out to your payroll system and, oh, what do you know? There's an app. There's an app they can go and sign in, and it geofences around your facility. So, people are not, not that they would be unfair about their punch, but you tried things different, and that might stay for a while now, because that's been more convenient. It's more sanitary. You don't have 35 guys standing in front of a time clock before their shift or at break, but multiple times during the day. So that was really, I think, it was very powerful for me as a leader to see all that involvement and everybody really wanting to make sure we were making good decisions to keep everyone safe and healthy. So but that's probably the most I can recall right now. So
thank you. Everyone working to make it possible to continue to do what you do every day, but right. in different ways. I'd just like to ask a little bit about, we're all noticing, of course, our grocery bills going up, and wondering if you can give us any insight into, is that driven somewhat by COVID or other factors involved in that? Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so, early on, obviously, besides people panic buying, right, that created that huge hit on supply and demand, that never slowed down. So you had anything from as simple as aluminum cans to the bottles your water or Gatorade might be in, to, they were having labor constraints. I think many people in the workplace, this pandemic created a what's important in life experience for many people around the world. And people decided, you know what, I don't need either this job or this commute or whatever the reason might have been. But opportunity where people lost so many employees, right? And because you saw that void of employees, and no matter what you were manufacturing, as automated as it could be, it had an impact. So you take all those jobs going away, you tried to get people to come back to work, right? And many of them were getting into a different lifestyle of what they could live on. and what was going to entice them to come back for additional wages, right? So you have pressure from these all the way up the food chain, from supply constraint, from raw ingredients to just what they're actually supplied and packaged in, cardboard costs, everything involved in transportation, right? You saw the gas prices creeping. They're even more so now. So all these contributing factors of what truly goes in when you think about what it takes to get that product from not even being food that you're going to intake, all the way to when it actually arrives at the store on the shelf. I mean, tons of cost components that were impacted. But, you know, at the beginning, yeah, you know, just that employee void for so long did not help, because it had a domino effect up and down the food chain to impact costs in so many areas, that, you know, that's driving a ton of it. But yeah, it's a crazy world we're in, and inflation that I know my role prior to CEO was in financial. So I was the CFO before I took this role. And so I started, and there was, you know, on average 2, 3, 4%, right, on a big year. And now my CFO, before she, you know, she'll deliver the financial statements, and there's an adjustment for booking our inventory. And it's sizable every single month. I mean, monthly entries that you don't see for a year's time. So yeah, the impact, and trying to work with your retailers to make sure that, you know, they still have a value proposition. You know, when I was talking about variety, right? And it's unusual to me that different manufacturers are coming out with these increases, and 3 months later they come out with another one. You know, so what is happening so quickly that we can't quite see where that's going to stop. So that's frightening across the board, because we're involved in that food chain. So I know my people have to go to the grocery store and buy groceries for more money too, right? So you have these pressures on wages, and everything you read says the wages aren't going to keep up with what the inflation is, and what does that do for retention? So, and it's not just grocery, that's everywhere. So every person has to deal with as an employer, because your people are buying groceries. And so
it's a complex picture, isn't it?
It sure is.
So many different factors involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
Amy, can you tell us what you think? And again, you mentioned a couple of things already, but what do you think will be some of the permanent changes that come out of our having, you know, lived through COVID, particularly from your business in grocery, helping with grocery retail, all of that supplying. What do you see besides the employees and how they're checking in? I think that's a marvelous adaptation.
Yeah. So I think, you know, obviously I might have mentioned this earlier, but just how the end consumer shopping, right? So, you know, e-commerce pickup or delivery, I don't see that going away. Everyone has, whether it's, you know, Chewy to buying your pet supplies to, you know, a pickup at one of our local retailers. It's the value of your time and the value of what you want to be doing with your life, right? I think that's the bigger thing that COVID has done for so much of the public, is reprioritized what's important. And you know, you saw that with just people's cooking at home, and you hear about those stories of busy families who were spending, you know, maybe 2 meals a week together at the table, because mom was taking one to a soccer practice and dad was running this one to a recital, and that all stopped for a moment in time. And, you know, people enjoyed that. They enjoyed that togetherness again. So I think, you know, that instilling that in not just your family life, but as an employer, I think is going to be something that we're going to have to strive to do, because that's a culture that people expect. As I said, you know, we put a lot of our back office remote for the protection of them, and they could do their job remotely. You know, we never, before COVID, I don't think would have entertained a hybrid work policy where you could work remote part-time. We have that now. You know, it's flexible work schedules, because that's the anticipation of the generation that it works now, and definitely the generation coming in. in my opinion.
Mhm.
They like that flexibility. I also think, just slipped my mind where I was going with that. It had to do with employees and just that work-life balance. But, we need to instill these things for retention, but recruitment. We're also, we're seeing this void in CDL drivers. And that's, like I said, we have over 50 drivers that work for us. And it's not necessarily retention, but retirement for us. We have a lot of people on the outlook as close as 6 to 12 months that we're going to look to replace. So things that companies have talked about, from a tuition reimbursement program, we're now trying to decide, at what point do you stop trying to entice people to drive? So we're entertaining ideas of tuition reimbursement for, regardless of what you currently do at CERTCO. If you have this passion of maybe wanting to drive a semi truck and trailer because there's such a need for it, and we're unique that we do offer that quality of life. So you are home every night still. Your drive for us allows you to still sleep in your own bed, which I think is a huge win of how we've kept our drivers. They're not sleeping in the back of their cabs. We don't have sleepers in our trucks. But that doesn't stop the retirement and the aging of these CDL drivers that we do still have. So, I think that's going to be something that is here now, and it's you hear the numbers of the people leaving that versus coming in, and there's different constraints on that too, because business insurance likes to have a different picture of just an 18-year-old that has their CDL. That's not necessarily who they want to insure. They want to insure somebody who's been driving for 6 years. Well, where do you find them? Everybody's offering, signing bonuses or anything to try to retain and rehire CDL drivers. So that's a huge void that we've been very fortunate to keep, because, like I said, that work life, they're home every night or day, depending if they're night or day drivers for us. But we can't ignore that that's going to continue to be a problem to try to replace them. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you to Amy from CERTCO and Catherine Schneider for setting this whole interview up. We appreciate both of their time, and we'll get that interview posted up online for you. And yeah, it's awesome to have our local businesses share their stories, especially during these crazy times with COVID-19. We'll take a quick break, wrap up the show next. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be blood next Thursday?
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day.
I have no time for this.
So
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth.
All right, we're wrapping up the show. It's been a good one. We hope you have a great day. The full interview from Catherine's interview with CERTCO will be up online for you. And let's hope for some sunshine, right? Have a good one.